Yo, what is up, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. In today's video, I want to talk about a team that I personally think is kind of going under the radar as a dark horse team to not just win the Western Conference, but win the NBA Finals as a whole, and that is the Denver Nuggets. Now, before I kind of get into exactly why, please make sure to like and subscribe if you do enjoy the video. It really helps my channel out a lot, and also comment down below and let me know if you think Jokic should be the MVP and if you think the Nuggets can end up winning a championship, whether at the beginning or end of this video, and let me know if I changed your mind. So, this season, the Denver Nuggets are having a pretty good year. They're sitting at 36-20 as I record this video. They're 6th in the Western Conference, tied for the 5th seed with the Dallas Mavericks. They're 2.5 games out of the 4th seeded Utah Jazz as well. So they still are in the thick of things, trying to get home court advantage in the playoffs. And right now they're playing some of their best basketball all season. They're currently on a 6-game win streak. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games. Right now, they're ranked 5th in the NBA.com power ranking, so all in all, they're having a great stretch of basketball, offensively and defensively, and of course, they're led by one of the best players in basketball, period, Nikola Jokic. He's having a season that rivals his MVP season last year, averaging right around 25.5 points per game, 14 rebounds, 8 assists, 1.5 steals, just over half a block a game, ridiculous efficiency from him too, shooting 56.7% from the field and 36.4% from three, which is insane when you consider that he's missing his top 2 offensive options due to injuries, which we'll talk about in a second, but just the difficulty of shots that he takes, the amount that they rely on him to create for others as well as himself, the fact that he's that efficient is kind of absurd. He's just been so incredibly dominant. He's even been better defensively than he has in the past, and right now he looks poised for another top 3 MVP finish. If not winning the MVP itself, I think he 100% has a chance to do that. So, all in all, things are going pretty well for the Denver Nuggets. They're 7th ranked in offense this season, 11th ranked in defense this season, one of only around 5 teams that are doing that right now, and it's just all around super impressive for a team, like I mentioned, that's missing 2 of its top 3 players, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr., and has dealt with significant injuries pretty much all season. So, the Nuggets, they're just doing a good job of staying afloat during all those injuries. Now, of course, they still are the 6th seed, and there are some really tough teams in the NBA, so you might be asking, okay, what about them makes a dark horse team, and why do I think they could potentially have a chance to win it all? And it's because of the return of those 2 guys that I mentioned, Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. Now, you might be thinking, oh, Jamal Murray tore his ACL. He's not going to come back this season. Michael Porter Jr. is potentially out for the year, or at least he's been out for a very long time with that back injury. So what makes me think they're going to return? Well, recent reports from Woj and Shams said that there's a good chance that they come back. Michael Porter Jr. in specific is rumored to be nearing a return to being able to do on-court contact drills, which means he could return at some point in March, according to Woj. And Jamal Murray's timeline, a little bit less clear, but it's rumored that he could return as soon as March as well. And so if they both come back during that time, it gives them right around a week or 2 to get back into the rhythm of things, get into the flow of actual NBA games rather than just like rehab assignments. So while it's not a lot of time, they are both really good players, and bringing them back can only help this team. Even if they aren't quite at 100% at the level that they want to be at, they're still going to help. They're going to take some of that offensive load off of Nikola Jokic. They're going to help that team. They'll have more depth just by them returning, and all around they'll just give them a better fighting chance into the playoffs. And even in those last few regular season games that, with how close the Western Conference is, could decide whether the Nuggets are a top 4 seed or like a 6 seed when it comes down to it at the end of the season. What it gets really scary is when we look back to the way that the Nuggets played last season after the acquisition of Aaron Gordon at the trade deadline, when those 2 guys were healthy. Because after that acquisition of Aaron Gordon, they were dominant. They were 7-2 in their 9 games following the trade deadline. That's including the game that Jamal Murray got hurt in against the Golden State Warriors, by the way. They won by an average of 12 points in those wins. They look like they could potentially win the whole thing. I made a video about them during that stretch, and it was just, Aaron Gordon was so helpful for that team. Of course, he's doing that again this year. He's been probably their second best player behind Nikola Jokic. He just does all the little things. He rebounds, he playmakes a little bit, he can hit some shots, and he's just been such a helpful piece for that team, lifting some of that burden off of Nikola Jokic, because while Jokic is so talented and dominant, you do need someone to help him out. You can't have a guy carrying that significant of a load and win a championship. It's just very unrealistic. You need a really solid supporting cast, and when they're fully healthy, a starting lineup of Jamal Murray, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic is so ridiculously good. They look like potential champions. As I mentioned, they did lose Jamal Murray in that game versus the Warriors, but even like after his injury, they were still a really good team. They went 13-5 over the last 18 games of the regular season following that injury. They eventually won a playoff series against the Portland Trailblazers in just 5 games, which I don't know if that says more about the Blazers last season or the Denver Nuggets, but either way, it was just a dominant effort. They ended up bowing out in the second round to the eventual Western Conference champion Phoenix Suns in what was a sweep. They were just outmatched. The Suns were just such a good team last year, as they are showing again this year. But overall, it was a pretty good run for a Nuggets team that was missing Jamal Murray, someone who has shown multiple times in the playoffs how good he can be. And in the playoffs last year, Jokic was just unstoppable. He averaged 30 points per game, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 51% from the field, 37% from 3. He just elevated his game somehow from the already incredibly dominant season that he had to an even higher level. Michael Porter Jr. was pretty solid as well, even though his stats kind of went down a little bit. He averaged 17.4 points per game, 5.2 rebounds on 47.4% shooting, 40% from 3. So a pretty great stat line from him, even if it wasn't quite the level that he was before. Part of the reason why that lowered a little bit is because Nikola Jokic was just so dominant scoring the ball that Michael Porter Jr. really didn't have to do as much. And so his scoring average dropped by like a point and a half, but nothing too big. And of course, as I mentioned, we all know how good Jamal Murray can be on the big stage. Last time he was in the playoffs, he was trading 50 pieces with Donovan Mitchell in the first round, and last time they had all of those guys healthy, they went to the Western Conference Finals before losing to the eventual NBA champion Los Angeles Lakers. And since that series, since that playoff run, they've only gotten better. As I mentioned, Aaron Gordon is such a big acquisition both offensively and defensively for this team. Nikola Jokic has gone from like an 1A, 1B type center with Joel Embiid, a guy that people were like, oh, maybe he's like top 15, to now, I think, pretty much consensus, a top 5 player in the NBA, a reigning most valuable player, one of the most dominant playmakers we've seen, one of the most dominant offensive players we've seen in a long time with how great he is efficiency-wise, playmaking-wise. He just does everything for that team. Michael Porter Jr. last season was on fire. He was on a tear, incredibly efficient, scoring around 19 points per game. So if he's able to find some of that scoring rhythm, he'll take so much pressure off of Jokic and just the team as a whole. Jamal Murray, if he's able to come back, like I said, we know how good he can be in the playoffs, but even so, even if he doesn't come back quite at that level that we've seen him in the past, just his ability to create for himself as well as others, score the basketball, and play solid defense at the guard position will be it'll just be incredibly helpful for this Denver Nuggets team, a team that has already been good without him. They could only benefit from him coming back. They're all better versions of themselves. This team has only gotten better since that time that they went to the Western Conference Finals. So you put all that together, if they get fully healthy, I genuinely think they have a chance to win it all. We look at their competition out west. The Lakers are kind of in shambles. The Warriors have been kind of up and down, and they really don't have someone to deal with a guy like Nikola Jokic. The Utah Jazz, there's some turmoil there. The Dallas Mavericks are pretty solid, but still it feels like they're beatable. The Phoenix Suns are really the dominant team out west. And the Nuggets, I think, could give them a tough time if they do get fully healthy. They've got the personnel to try and slow them down. Of course, as I mentioned with Jokic, they've got some incredible defensive players, but Jokic, his ability to pick apart defenses, make great reads, and just be an all-around unstoppable player, I think makes them really tough to beat in any series. If you're one of those top 3 teams and you have to go into the playoffs against the Denver Nuggets in the first round, like say for example, you're the 3rd seeded Memphis Grizzlies. If you have to go into the first round and play the Denver Nuggets fully healthy with that lineup of Jamal Murray, Will Barton, Michael Porter Jr., Aaron Gordon, and Nikola Jokic, that is a ridiculously hard first round matchup. If they don't get a top 4 seed, they're going to give some team hell in the first round, one of those top 4 teams, assuming they're able to get fully healthy. Of course, all of this does hinge on when Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are able to come back, but the fact that towards the start of the season, I didn't think either of them were going to be able to come back, especially not Jamal Murray. Michael Porter Jr., was a little more up in the air, but after a couple weeks or months or so, it kind of seemed like he wasn't going to return, but things have just continued to get better and better for them. We've gotten better news, and really just all around, it seems like there's a lot of optimism in the Denver Nuggets organization that those two guys will be back at some point before the playoffs. And right now, the NBA feels pretty wide open. There's no dominant super teams or anything like that. There's nothing like the Golden State Warriors of years past. The NBA feels pretty wide open. So I think the Denver Nuggets are a team to definitely keep your eye on. If you're looking for a team that is a sleeper going into the playoffs, keep an eye on the Denver Nuggets, because if they get fully healthy, the West better look out, because that's a team that I could 100% see making it to the Western Conference Finals, even making it to the NBA Finals and winning it all, getting probably a Finals MVP for Nikola Jokic on top of what might be another MVP season for him. So those are my thoughts on the Denver Nuggets. That's why I really think they could be a dominant team if they do get healthy. Let me know in the comment section below if you think the Nuggets could win it all. If you think I'm crazy, also let me know in the comment section. And also just let me know right now who you have coming out of the West and winning the NBA Finals, because I'm super curious. I appreciate y'all watching. Once again, please make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. I will see you all later. Real one.